Yeah, like I watched the little dude, Lil Jeff, come up. That's like a little brother to me, man.
You knew him personally?
Yeah, that's like a little brother with me, man. Like I used
How'd
to
you
be
meet
with
him?
his brother. I used to be with his brother. I know his mama, his grandma. I used to be in the house with them. You feel what I'm saying? So it was like, Shawty was cold in basketball. He used to beat the whole house ass in 2K. He was the kid, the mohawk, pretty ass, beat the whole house ass, kicking all our ass. We grown. He a fucking kid. You feel me? But it's like when I used to hear his name, I ain't never knew that they was talking about him, Lil J. You feel me? I'm like, damn. I had talked to him on FaceTime like right before I got booked. I'm like, damn, man, you know I love you, man. I love you too, little bro. I'm damn, boy. I'm down. So you ain't playing ball no more? Nah, big bro. I'm like, damn.
My career got shot up when I was like 14. I was some stupid ass. The bullet, that bitch flew like right past my face. They had shot the back and the front. Then they blew the car up and set that bitch on fire. Shit was busting. I ain't gonna lie, what's going on. It came career, but that bitch almost hit me, dog. See what I'm saying, though? Shit like that. And play a part. All type of.
Everyone knows Lil Jeff. But before Jeff became one of the most feared names in Chicago drill, there was someone operating in the background who a lot of people believe shaped him into who he became. That person is his older brother, J Boogie. And if you think Lil Jeff was dangerous, the people who actually know the history will tell you. You haven't looked deep enough into Boogie's story yet. The key difference between the two was always visibility. Lil Jeff was constantly on camera, talking about bodies, dissing ops by name, making himself a known quantity in every way possible. J Boogie moved completely differently. He stayed in the background, kept his name out of interviews, and operated quietly, which is exactly why most people outside of Chicago never gave him the same attention. But people from the city who watched both of them come up would tell you that Boogie's street reputation predates Jeff's music career by years. Reddit threads from people close to the scene describe his name carrying weight as far back as the mid-2000s, well before Lil Jeff ever picked up a mic. To understand where that reputation came from, you have to go back to when J Boogie was still going by a different name. Before Bloodhounds, before any of the public-facing beef, J Boogie was known in the neighborhood as Young Khalifa. During that period, he was closely connected to one of Flipside's most respected figures, a man known as Tay. Tay carried serious weight in the area. His influence and reputation were foundational to the environment J Boogie was coming up in, and Boogie's proximity to him during those formative years was part of what shaped how he moved and how he was perceived. In August 2014, Tay was gunned down. His death hit the community hard. People from Flipside began referring to the area as Tay Block in his honor, a name that stuck as a way of keeping his memory alive on the same streets he represented. That loss was part of the landscape J Boogie came of age in. An environment where respected figures got taken suddenly, and the people around them had to figure out what came next. It wasn't abstract, it was personal. Around the same time he was connected to Flipside, Boogie was also building ties that would eventually become bloodhounds. He had footage circulating of him in O Block, which is the turf of some of Chicago's most well-known street figures, kicking it with members there, including a figure known as Troy. One of those O Block connections was Boss Top, who later described knowing both J Boogie and Lil Jeff personally, saying he used to be in the house with Boogie, knew their mother and grandmother, and watched Jeff grow from a young kid into the person he would become. That kind of cross-neighborhood access, moving comfortably between O Block and his own area, spoke to how established Boogie's name already was before Jeff became famous. J Boogie was primarily from Chris World before becoming one of the founding members of Bloodhounds. And the events that came out of Chris World would have a direct and lasting impact on both brothers. In August 2013, a Chris World member named Kenny Mack was killed. According to accounts that circulated online, the situation started over a dispute. Allegedly, Kenny had killed someone named Obama from TYMB in a dice game altercation, and his own death came as retaliation for that. The comment threads on Reddit from people close to the situation described Kenny Mack as the spark that ignited the war between Chris World and TYMB. In the aftermath of Obama's death, TYMB rebranded themselves as Obama World as a way of keeping his name alive. But the deeper consequence was that whatever bond had previously existed between Chris World and TYMB began to fracture and then break entirely. What had been an alliance, or at minimum a tolerance, turned into something else, an active, ongoing conflict between two sides of the same neighborhood. Lil Jeff spoke about witnessing the scene of Kenny Mac's death firsthand. He described it as something that genuinely hurt him, seeing his people killed in real time at close range. That experience and the exposure to that level of violence at a young age was one of the things people point to when they try to explain how Jeff became who he became. He wasn't operating from a place of detachment. He had watched the people around him die since he was a child. What made it even more direct was that the war that grew from those events came straight to their front door. Lil Jeff later talked about a specific incident. Enemies came to their family's home, specifically targeting J Boogie, and shot up both the front and the back of the house simultaneously. They blew a cop and set it on fire. Jeff was 14 years old inside that house. He described a bullet passing close enough to his face that it left a mark on how he thought about everything from that point forward. The fact that they were coming for his older brother and that he almost caught the bullet meant for someone else is the kind of moment that doesn't leave a person. That incident is also a window into what J Boogie's reputation was already doing at that stage. People were coming to the house specifically for him. He wasn't a peripheral figure, he was the target. And that's years before Lil Jeff's name was anywhere. As Jeff grew up and began moving the way he moved, the framework he operated in was one his older brother had built. Boogie had the connections, the reputation, and the network that Jeff eventually inherited and operated within. People who knew both of them described the dynamic that way. Boogie was already established, and Jeff came up in the lane Boogie had already carved out. Boss Top, reflecting on watching Jeff grow up, said it himself. That was like a little brother to him. He knew him as a kid, watched him become what he became. The trajectory made sense to people who had been around from the beginning because they had already seen what the older brother was capable of. After Lil Jeff was killed, the dynamic around J Boogie shifted again. Jeff had signed a deal with No Limits Mineski through Lil Baby's label, and after his death, J Boogie reportedly tried to recover money or rights from that deal. When the deal structure didn't allow for that, the relationship between Boogie and Mineski deteriorated quickly. There was also a situation involving Big OP, who reportedly dissed J Boogie first, which set off a public back and forth. Boogie tagged Mineski in a post accusing him of running to the internet rather than handling things directly. Mineski fired back publicly, pointing out that he had been the one who signed Jeff and put him on, questioning why Boogie was now moving against the people who had supported his brother. The exchange escalated to the point where Big OP called out No Limit G Money for even being seen with J Boogie, and J Boogie eventually unfollowed Big OP on social media, which in this world carries its own weight as a signal about where the relationship stands. As of where things are now, the tension between J Boogie and the No Limit side hasn't fully resolved, and the situation remains watched closely by people who follow Chicago drill. The Mineski situation specifically sits at the intersection of music, money, and street loyalty, a combination that rarely stays contained to social media. What the full picture of J Boogie's story shows is someone who operated at a significant level of influence without ever seeking the kind of visibility that made his younger brother so recognizable. He shaped the environment Jeff grew up in, was connected to foundational figures across multiple areas of the city, and was already established enough to be actively targeted while Lil Jeff was still a teenager. The story most people know starts with Jeff. The story that people from Chicago know starts with Boogie. Drop a comment. Did you know about J Boogie before Lil Jeff became famous? Or is this the first time you're hearing his full story?